Am I the a-hole because I want to cash out my life insurance policy so I can spend my last 9 to 12 months in comfort? My parents, the beneficiary, are threatening to disown me. So yeah, I, male 28, have a terminal medical condition which I won't go into too much detail about. I didn't have the best health insurance/doctors, so I found out I had a big problem pretty much when it was too late. About the only thing I had of value other than some meager savings and an even smaller 401 in my car was a life insurance policy I got years ago when I was 18. It was a relatively small amount yearly and awesome terms, so why not? I always thought I could swap it over a future wife/kid, but not happening now. So, I haven't been able to work now for about 2 months. But I won't be eligible for hospice care until probably a few weeks before the end. The actual policy itself was for an eye-watering amount if I died before a certain age, which unfortunately is what is going to happen. I have been living at home with my parents rent-free since I stopped working, which is good of them. We haven't had the best relationship growing up, and they pretty much only did the minimum required by law in terms of how they raised me. No complaints, but not parents of the year material. A lot of this was due to finances. I have been putting money towards food and utilities, but not the rent they're paying, as that was a cost they were covering by themselves, and my being here hasn't increased it. Anyway, I have been investigating cash outs, both through the company and investor groups, that will give you a bit more in exchange for being named as beneficiary. I will probably stick with the company offer to get things moving faster. There are going to be some taxation issues, but the end result will be that my parents will essentially get an amount that will cover my funeral, and possibly a really good second-hand car. I estimate that the amount I will get will be enough for me to rent a nice condo near the beach, nice meals, maid service, some great experiences while I am well enough, and some in-home care nursing towards the end. My parents have basically said that the life insurance policy named to them will set them up for life and allow them to buy a house and invest, etc., and probably even retire early. They are in their 50s and were probably going to have to work until they dropped. They were telling me that they have made a lot of sacrifices to have me move into their house until I go to hospice, but I really don't see what that is, other than the inconvenience of 3 adults in a 2-bedroom house. One of them was going to give up work towards the end to provide some home care until I qualified for hospice, but my cashing out will mean they can keep working. I get that it would be the noble thing to help my parents out, but I don't want to. Edit. A few people have asked about the cash out versus beneficiary payment. 6 figures cash out, 7 figures if it goes to beneficiaries. It's a crazy good policy, but only because I am dying at the age I am and from the condition I have. It's like winning the worst lottery ever. Lol. Final edit. I'm tired and I'm going to have a nap. Thanks to all the messages of support and clarification on hospice entitlements and final advice. To put concerns to rest, when I said I won't be eligible for hospice for a few weeks before the end, I worded it badly, as much as is in my power. The only time I will go into hospice proper is my last few weeks. I am young and strong, and I plan to spend as much time by the sea until I can't. Let's see if life screws that up for me too. Lol. I will be meeting up with the social workers soon and making sure I claim everything I can. I love my parents despite the past, and my family, and I know this is putting a terrible strain on all of us. And I hope they will forgive me and keep the best memories on top. That's all, everyone. Take care. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your parents are looking at you as a post-mortem ATM. They actually are looking forward to you dying so they can cash in. Take the money and spend it how you wish. Right? What was it you said about naming one of the insurance companies as benefactor getting you more? Because I'm thinking that sounds good. Your parents sounds like ghouls, acting like their child with a terminal illness is some kind of lottery winning. It's utterly repulsive. I'd make a will and stipulate they get exactly enough to cover your funeral and final expenses, and have the rest go to the insurance company or a charity you care about. Or literally anyone but the people freaking rooting for you to die so they can cash in. Not the a-hole. It's your life, OP. It's your money, and you deserve to be able to live this time as you truly want. I would repay the funeral so they don't get buried in a cardboard box. Someone else said prepaying my funeral and making arrangements now would be a good gesture for my parents. I think it is a good idea as well. If you don't have long to go, you should be spending it as happy and comfortable as you are able to. Besides, it's your life insurance. It's your money. It's a kindness already to leave enough to cover funeral costs. Your loss shouldn't be their gain. They should want the best for you while you're here. Not stay whole. Thanks for that, man. Yeah, no parent should have to bury their child, so I think it's responsible for me to cover the costs. I am pretty sure my siblings and I will have to pay to bury my parents when their time comes, as saving money/earning money has never been their best point. It won't be my problem though, lol. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he chose his second family just like his dad did? My parents had me at a young age. I am now almost 29 and my parents are both in their mid-late 40s. Growing up, I saw my granddad, my dad's dad, a lot. But now me and my siblings don't exist to him and he hasn't spoken to my dad in years. He doesn't even know he is a great-granddad. My granddad remarried and pays more attention to the kids from that relationship and their kids. My parents split when I was 12. It was hard, but we got through it. And up until recently, I had a great relationship with my dad. The last time I saw him was 2 days before my daughter's birthday back in March. He made a surprise trip with my half-siblings and his girlfriend. Now, I don't expect him to drop everything because I live 2 hours away, but I was visiting my hometown for 2 weeks in August whilst dog-sitting for my mom. But he was always too busy with my half-siblings to even visit for half an hour. He doesn't even text or call, and he doesn't reply if I do. So I give up. I think what pushed me over the edge is that they can travel 4 to 6 hours to another country for a day out almost every other weekend, but won't travel 2 to see his granddaughter? So I snapped and told him this is how it started with his dad. He was around for his grandchildren, then just stopped and focused on his second family. And for someone who said he wouldn't be like his dad, he sure is acting like him. My dad's girlfriend piped up and said I got my dad when I was younger. So why can't my half-siblings get him now? I told her it's not about me. It's about my daughter knowing her granddad as he is the only person she doesn't know. At that point, she called me an a-hole for trying to ruin my half-siblings' childhood. Just to add, my dad lives with his girlfriend and half-siblings, so it's not like he only gets to see them every other weekend or every weekend. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. What really gets me is his girlfriend's comment that you had him when you were young. As if growing up means he is no longer your father and you aren't meant to want time with him. I find that extremely entitled of her, because she really is prioritizing her children. No doubt he has a responsibility to them too, to provide for them, etc., but your age just doesn't make you any less his child. She's selfish and entitled, totally. You didn't mention what your dad's reaction was though, and that's what matters in my opinion. He didn't say anything about that. If I'm honest, I don't know why he's still with her. As with that relationship, she says jump and he says how high. It's not a very good relationship all around. I guess it stays for the kids. Not the a-hole, but don't bet on your dad. It hurts, like a lot, but better write him off now. Maybe a last try would bring closure. Sit down with him, alone, and have a sincere conversation. I'd love that, but he can't go anywhere without her, or she doesn't let him. And if I say something, I'm in the wrong. If she really doesn't let him go, he is a victim. But even though we want to help them sometimes, for our own sake, we have to let go of them or take some space. Tell him you're done, but if he ever wanted to talk, he can call. Try to free yourself of waiting for something you have no influence on. Next story. Am I the a-hole for selling my house which could cause my in-laws to be homeless? My wife was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. She fought as hard as she could for as long as she could, but she sadly passed away 6 months ago. We never had kids, and both were very career-focused. After my wife's diagnosis, she wanted her parents to move in with us because they lived on the opposite coast of the US, and she wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. Our house had plenty of room for them, and I wanted to make my wife as happy as possible with the time she had left, so I agreed. Her parents are both retired, but they aren't exactly well off. We never asked them to help pay for anything while they lived with us. There was enough stress in our lives already, and none of us wanted to add financial issues to that. They helped with groceries from time to time, but we never asked for more than that. Lately, I've been struggling a lot with my grief. I feel like a lot of it is connected to our house and everything in it reminding me of my wife. I break down a lot over the tiniest stuff. My in-laws still live here, and as far as I know, they haven't made any arrangements for moving out. For the last month or so, I've been contemplating selling the house and pretty much starting over somewhere new to try and get away from so many triggers. I finally talked with a realtor a couple weeks ago, and I'm pretty much set on moving forward with selling the house. I brought it up with my in-laws over this past weekend, and it did not go well. They accused me of wanting to erase the life that my wife and I built here. But they accused me of wanting them out of my life now that my wife is dead. They told me they have nowhere else to go and I would basically be making them homeless. I can completely understand their anger and fear, but also this isn't their house nor their decision. I am simply wanting to move on from my lowest point in my life. I do not want to erase anything that my wife and I built together. But I also don't think I can continue living in this house. It's just too heartbreaking and I don't like crying every time a memory gets triggered. I ended up telling them that they are free to stay here for as long as it takes to sell the house. But I recommended that they start looking into making their own arrangements. Father-in-law asked if I would be willing to rent the house to them so that they don't have to find a new place. But when I told him what I would expect for monthly payments, he scoffed at it and called me out for trying to capitalize on their grief and that their daughter would have never wanted this. Neither one of them is talking to me now, and there is definitely palpable conflict in the air. I don't like that it has come to this, but I am making a decision based on what I think is best for me right now. I feel bad for the situation it puts my in-laws in, but I can't be responsible for their feelings in addition to my own right now. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You have been saving them money for the last 1 to 2 years. They could afford to live however they were living before, and they can live that way again. You are not capitalizing on their grief. They are trying to monetize your guilt. If anything, mother-in-law and father-in-law are capitalizing on OP's grief. They knew moving in that they were there to spend the rest of their daughter's life together. There is no reason that they should be there 6 months after OP's wife passed. If they had moved out after their daughter passed, even like a month or 2 later, OP could have already sold the house and started to heal. Not the a-hole. You're not throwing them out tomorrow. You're telling them that you can't stay there and you're selling the home. There's no erasing the life you had with your wife. You'll carry that the rest of your life. You're entitled to doing what is best for you. Also, how did they think they wouldn't have to pay something to rent? Sounds like they just thought they'd live with you for free forever. Because you're a nice person? Not the a-hole at all. However, I'm just going to say from a housing market perspective, you might want to wait a few months. And instead of telling parents when it sells they have to move out, give a deadline, say 6 months. Otherwise, they'll either try to sabotage the sale or will wait until the last minute and claim you made them homeless. So sorry for your loss, and I hope a new place will help you heal. I don't care about a market. I just want to stop having breakdowns every time I have a triggering memory over something silly, like finding a beach towel my wife used on a vacation we took. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not moving out of my brother's house? My brother, 42 male, and his fiancée, 39 female, are getting married. I, 36 male, live with my parents who are in their 80s. My brother pays rent for the home. However, he lives in his apartment but will soon be moving back into his house and told me he wants me to move out, knowing I can't afford my own apartment. I am a military reserve part-time soldier and my brother is a mailman and realtor. My parents and I have lived with my brother for 10 years now, and now he wants me to move out without having any sort of plan or housing arrangement in place for me. He knows I don't make much, only roughly $12,000 a year since I only work once every weekend or when I am getting scheduled for drill, which obviously isn't often. I told him that I would move if he would allow me to live inside the apartment that he is currently living at, but he has declined and won't allow me to without giving any sort of reasoning. I feel it is his fiancée who encouraged him to go down this endeavor of putting me onto the street so suddenly, when my brother never mentioned any of this such and having any despair feelings of me moving out. In our culture, it is common for family to live together under one roof. I told him there is no way I'm moving unless I'm being allowed to stay in the apartment. You're the a-hole just thinking you could get by on a reservist's salary. You're the a-hole for thinking that it was perfectly acceptable and adult to have your brother, not even your parents for Pete's sake, pay your way through life. You're the a-hole for believing that any other adult would and could continue to pay for your lifestyle forever. I mean, come on, what was your plan had your brother died tomorrow? You're the a-hole for trying to shift the blame onto your future sister-in-law. That's some messed up sexist nonsense to assume that. But even if it's true, you're the a-hole for now expecting someone else to have to financially support your obviously capable but lazy butt. You're the a-hole because in all of this, not once did you think about how any of this is going to affect your geriatric parents. Where are they supposed to go? Go freaking enlist full-time and learn some self-respect, self-motivation, and basic common sense. All of this, especially the reservist part. OP, you know almost all reservists work full-time jobs too, right? What has stopped you in the past 10, 15 plus years from working more than reservist hours? You have spent your entire adult life being taken care of. It's time to grow up and take responsibility for your life and quit expecting everyone else to foot the bill. You're the a-hole. Yep, we had a reservist on my team, recently transferred to a new group, and he was a manager. When he had trainings or active duty, he would go on military leave and then come back. It never caused any issues with his employment here. My man, get your act together. You're not your brother's responsibility. It's his house. If it says get out, then you're going to have to put your big boy underwear on and get a job outside of your weekend soldier cosplay. You're the a-hole. You are 36. You officially were an adult at 18 years ago. You have lived far too long on your brother's dime. It is time to adult. Good for your brother that he recognizes this would be an infringement on his relationship with his fiancée to have his grown brother continue on as his dependent for no reason. Set some goals. Get some life counseling. Get a job. Spread your wings and fly. Am I the a-hole for catching my sister cheating on her boyfriend and involving myself? This happened months ago and still don't know if I did the right thing or not. My younger sister that's still in high school has been dating this guy we will call Chris. Chris is a smart, charming, good-looking dude, cares a lot, and isn't a douche. I didn't like Chris at first because he was dating her, and I have a hard time opening up to people. But he's a truly cool kid, very kind, gets good grades, plays sports, and was on a good path. He was a good friend as well. Anyways, I come home from work a few hours early, and there is a car sitting in my spot in the driveway. Didn't think much of it, because she always has friends coming over. I walk in the front door to see her with another guy in the living room. I didn't see much since they heard me open the door, and I looked away, but I saw just enough to tell what was going on. I walked down the hallway to the bathroom to take a leak. It's away from the living room, and figured that's enough time for them to get dressed. I get done with my business. I walk back to the living room and discover the kid who was there is someone I went to high school with. Our age gaps aren't much. I was only 2 years older than him. This kid was a freaking loser. He gets stoned every day, smokes, gets trash grades, acts like a turd in class, and makes teachers cry. Just about the biggest sack of turd you can think of in a high school kid. I asked my sister why. I started going on about how kid is a loser and that she threw Chris away for this little a-hole. Pretty much just talking crap about this bag of trash that's in my house. That little a-hole didn't like I was saying those things and said he wanted to fight me outside. I told him to get the heck out of my house, and he refused. Grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the house like a ragdoll and shoved him out of the front door, causing him to fall on his face. He gets back up and leaves in his car. I just gotten back from my job school in the military and was away from home for 8 months and was going to the gym frequently. I'm in the reserves, aka part-time military, so I have a civilian full-time job that's only a few minutes away from home. My younger sister is bawling her eyes out. I said she messed up, and I asked her why she did this. No response. I'm already furious at this point, but trying to keep it cool. She didn't want to respond, so I just dropped it and went to go to work on my truck. Parents got home a few hours. Didn't tell them about it. They still didn't know. The rest of the entire day I was debating on telling Chris, since I was pretty sure my sister didn't want to. Part of me wanted to take my family's side, but I felt like that wasn't the right thing to do. I called Chris that night and told him what was up. He sounded very upset and said it would just break things off with my sister, which was understandable. My relationship with my sister still hasn't healed. I've maybe seen her 4 times in the past few months. Part of it is because I travel for work and work overtime. I don't like how I was involved in this, and if it were up to me, I wish I didn't go home early that day because I do feel bad sometimes. But when I saw what was going on, I put myself in Chris's shoes and what I would have wanted if I were him. Him and I still cool and hang out sometimes. Edit. Yes, I know it sounds weird that I grabbed a high school kid and dragged him out of the house, but we did go to school together, and I had a class with him. He refused to leave the house and wanted to fight. I'm pretty sure he is 18, both are seniors. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Telling Chris was the right thing to do. All the a-hole stuff falls on your sister, sorry to say. I think it's better to rip the band-aid off and move on. Cheaters don't come clean in my experience. It just gets more messy. That opportunity you give them to have a sudden turnaround in personal integrity, they instead use to weasel parents and others on side to pressure you into silence. Or they come up with some twisted half-truths and gaslight the person being cheated on. The person being cheated on is being kept in the dark, and others are being made to feel an accomplice to it. Not the a-hole. If my significant other was cheating, I'd want to know ASAP. so I could break up immediately. Cheating and lying about it for a long time will hurt way worse when they find out it's been going on and they've been lied to forever. Now instead of wasting his life and time, he can now quit wasting his time with a cheater and start to move on and find a real girl who won't betray him. If she comes clean, good. Now she has to be a big girl and take accountability for her stupid actions. If she doesn't, then tell the kid herself and give her no other choice but to face it head on. Not the a-hole. You always tell someone when they've been cheated on. It's a matter of life and death in some cases, and basic decency always. Wish my friends had this mentality when my ex-wife was running around town. I've gotten to the point where I am amicable with my ex and co-parent well, but those friends that knew and never told me, well, those friendships never healed. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take down a congratulatory Facebook post for one of my daughters? I, 56 female, have twin daughters Ava and Susie, 25, with my husband, 57 male. Ava and Susie have always been complete opposites, but they were best friends up until just before they both moved away for college. Ava got into one of the best schools in the country and moved across the country for it. And Susie got into a good school but not as great as the one Ava got into, and this is where the problems began. Susie started making digs at Ava and making jokes that the college only accepted her for diversity reasons. Ava wouldn't let Susie say mean things about her without fighting back, so it was basically an entire summer of fighting and hostility in our household, no matter what my husband and I did to try to solve it. Susie's situation at college wasn't great. She got into hard drugs in college and was expelled in her second year for doing them on campus. She had to move back home and go to rehab. Rehab failed a lot of times, but we didn't give up on her. Ava would come back home several times a year to come see and support her sister. We were doing whatever we could to help Susie get her life back on track. Last year was the first time Susie's rehab actually worked for months. After she finished the treatment, and she even got a part-time job. Things were and still looking promising. She hasn't gone back to using and she's now working 30-ish hours a week. She's exercising and writing poetry and painting. We're so incredibly proud of her. Ava graduated with an undergraduate and a master's degree. My husband and I flew into her city for both graduations. Susie couldn't come for Ava's master's graduation because she said she couldn't take time off work. She hasn't taken time off work the entire year, so I'm kind of doubtful that she would be denied time off, but I didn't push the issue. I figured she just didn't want to go. Anyway, my husband and I went and we took loads of pictures, some of which I posted on Facebook. A lot of my friends and family were commenting on the post congratulating Ava and wishing her well. I got a call from Susie like 30 minutes after I posted it, asking if I can delete it. I asked her why, and she couldn't give me a reason at first. I said I'm not deleting it without a good reason, since all I did was post about Ava's graduation. She said if I keep posting about Ava's achievements and none of hers, she's going to look like a failure to everyone, and they're all going to wonder why Ava's done so well in life and she hasn't. I said I don't post her because she doesn't ever want me to. I once wanted to post the very first big canvas she painted onto Facebook, and she asked me not to because she thinks it's not something good enough to post or be proud of, in comparison in what other people her age were achieving. I always try and assure her that we are proud of her, and how far she has come is something she should also be proud of herself for. But she still doesn't ever want me to post anything about her on Facebook, so I don't. I told Susie that her feelings are valid, but Ava deserves to be celebrated, and that maybe she can talk about her feelings about this whole thing with her therapist and find a way to cope, because living like this isn't fair to either of them. I said I want to post about her achievements too, and how proud I am of her, but she won't let me, and that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it for Ava either. I was going to ask Ava whether she minds if I take it down, but honestly, I think Susie needs to deal with this problem with her therapist, instead of forbidding us to celebrate Ava on social media. I don't want her to continue living like this, and I don't think me conceding this time will be helpful to either of my daughters in the long run. Susie said it shouldn't be this hard for me to do something so minor that will make her feel better. I don't know if I'm being completely awful or if I have it right. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You did nothing wrong. Susie can't have it both ways. She can't tell you that she doesn't want you to post things about her, and then wonder if not posting things will make her look like a screw-up. Taking the pictures down would not make Susie feel better. Her unhappiness is far deeper and self-related. This is so important. Susie is externalizing her pain. She's projecting it onto you and something you did, rather than accepting that it's about her and how she feels about herself and her life. Minimizing Ava's accomplishments to make Susie feel better is not a good solution. Making someone else look smaller so you can feel bigger is never the right answer. Not the a-hole. Ava's accomplishments deserve to be celebrated. Don't take that post down. When you get home, remind Susie that you have tried in the past to post work you were proud of and she told you not to. Find something to put up of Susie's accomplishments soon. Maybe a general "so proud of my daughter Susie in the creative path she's pursuing" and run it by her, reminding her again that you can't get upset that you only post about one daughter, while actively preventing you from posting about her. Also, I would bet all Susie's troubles have taken a lot of attention off of Ava and used up a significant part of her parents' lives, finances, and energy. Don't you dare let Susie bully you into not celebrating Ava. Well said, it is Ava's time to shine, with all the hard work she has done to graduate. Susie does not get to tell the parents how to celebrate the other daughter. Susie had a choice of her life decisions. Not the a-hole. You are completely right. She needs to work out how to cope with her therapist. This seems like it all started because she couldn't cope with her sister have more success. Instead of focusing on herself and what she needs to feel fulfilled, she focused on her sister, and it made her miserable. Her sobriety is still relatively new. She's acting like a dry drunk. That's someone who isn't using, but still is exhibiting the toxic behaviors that lead to using. She's embarrassed about not being more successful, but instead of facing those feelings, she wants her sister to suffer. She doesn't want her sister to be happy or proud, and she doesn't want anyone supporting or congratulating her. She sees her sister's successes as her own failures. As long as she is in this mindset, she won't get better. Also, she won't let you celebrate her for a few reasons. One is because she doesn't feel good enough to be celebrated. But second, she's afraid of what will happen if she doesn't live up to praise or she relapses. Again, these are things she has to work through with a therapist. She won't be happy until she starts living her life for herself and focusing on her own goals and not worrying about where she is in comparison. You handled it as well as anyone could have. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to join family Christmas because my mom invited my beautiful sister? I, 27 male, was S8 as a child for years by my stepfather's son, who lived with my mom and stepfather at a time. A few years later, after talking to my little sister, 26 female, I found out that he had been essaying her as well at the same time. It wasn't until the school got involved and called DHS when they noticed the signs of abuse. Bedwetting, excessive scratching, inappropriate behavior with adults. Even after being sat down with a social worker in a small room with a two-way mirror, did we finally have to tell our mom and stepdad? But there was no point. My stepfather gaslit us, saying it never happened and we were making it up. My mother, not saying anything nor defending us, ignored the situation. Until about 2 years ago, when she admitted to my little sister, 24 at a time, in casual conversation, that she believed us the entire time, yet still never said anything. It's destroyed our mental health for years, on top of the verbal abuse from our stepfather and continued ignorance of our mom. My stepfather also has a daughter, close to her brother's age. She, of course, believed we were lying trying to cause drama in the family, since we were the kids intruding her family. We didn't communicate much with her and she soon became estranged from the entire family. My stepfather continued to be a horrible person. Years later, my mom is separated from him, even living in different homes and states for years. Recently, she's been spending time with him again, despite my sisters and I being against him in our lives again. But we choose to deal because it was either see our mom and deal with our stepdad or cut her off, and we weren't ready for that step. He continues to come to family events because he hopes to get remarried with our mom, despite his hatred for us. Christmas is coming and my mom decided to get a cabin for the weekend for the family, inviting my 3 sisters and their husbands, my father and his girlfriend. Then come to find out, our mom invited my stepfather's daughter, who we haven't talked to in over 10 years. My little sister is the one who found out, and she messaged my mom personally and older sister saying she isn't going. She said she can't handle being around him or his family anymore, and it would be better for her mental health to stay home. I of course agreed with her, saying I was refusing to go as well, for the same reason. My mom's only response was that she understands we have to prioritize our mental health, but said she'll see us after Christmas to drop off our cards. My little sister was very distraught and frustrated that my mom was choosing our stepdad and our abusers over her own kids. I'm used to it, since our family is just overall awful. But they always at least prioritized her feelings since she moved away after high school and barely sees them as is. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go to Christmas and stay by her side? Now for the top comments before the mini update. Not the a-hole, but your mom is. That is distasteful and dismissive of your hurt. Maybe you should sit this one out and let her feel your pain. I hate this kind of woman. Is the need of have a man in your life so great that sacrificing your kids seems sensible? Is the man so great that the suffering of your kids is not enough? OP, your mother is a crap stain, and you are not the a-hole. She's not going to. She is so self-centered that the mental health of her kids is invisible. Because if she's happy, why are they not? If she's like my mother-in-law, and she is, my mother-in-law is a self-centered witch. She's gonna cry a river because this was in the past. Why you cannot forgive and forget? We are family. OP, please go no contact. Your health is more important than everything else. Not the a-hole. He has some nerve messaging you after having refused to believe you were assaulted. Oh, he definitely believed them. He just didn't care about children being victimized. Exactly. I'm so fed up with hearing parents throw the "done so much for you" excuse in their kids' face. Giving your children a roof over their heads, feeding and clothing them is the bare minimum of being a parent. If you think that deserves a medal, then you have some serious issues. If the mom didn't know the abuse was happening, even with all the warning signs, that's one thing. But to stay with a man who calls your children liars and is abusive to them doesn't make you a good mom. Just because they had a roof over their heads, if it wasn't a safe place for them, you are failing them. Why would the kids want to be around their abuser's family, who treated them so poorly and called them liars? That's completely normal, and mom and stepdad had no right to complain about it. Mini update. My stepfather messaged us both today, calling us selfish, and that our mom has done so much for us and we're being hateful for refusing to go. That our mom is upset about the situation. We both didn't respond and blocked him. But we haven't heard from anyone else in the family, other than they don't want to get involved.